Hi, I'm Reed, and tonight we're talking about the hairy, sneaky boys themselves, Bugbears. Welcome to Monstering, our series on how to take creatures, threats, and enemies from D&D lore and customize them to our own campaigns. This is Crowland Publishing. Let's get to it. Alright, so Bugbears. Bugbears are a savage race of humanoids. They act mainly as raiders and bandits. They're only CR1, so they're really good for first level parties, for beginners. You can probably make them challenging to a party of about 4th level if you include numbers, good tactics. You might want to give one a few spells and call it a shaman. So, really quite good beginner beasts. They're not just goblins who are like running at you or, you know, they will have some tactics, which we'll get to in time. Now, D&D has an enemy class called humanoid. Star Trek aliens. They look human, as in 2 arms, 2 legs. They might have a monstrous face or something. They might have a big twist, like they have gills or whatever, or can, have spiky fur or something like that. But they're essentially just a kind of human, a degenerate human or something like that. Bugbears are a part of a humanoid race called goblinoids, which is a continuum of related humanoid races that sort of spring from the goblins. So you've seen Lord of the Rings and the Mines of Moria. There's the little goblins, and then related to them are the bigger orcs. And then I think it goes all the way up to ogres with a few sort of one-shot creatures here and there. Bugbears are just big, hairy orcs or goblins. They're tall. They're 7-footers, and they're covered in fur, as I said, like if Chewbacca was a mean drunk. And the big gimmick that they have is that they get advantage to attack from ambush. So if they're hitting you from behind, if they're sneaking up on you, if you're in combat when they hit you, they get rerolls. Pretty good. That is the big hook of Bugbears. All the other goblins are running around, I am a goblin man! But Bugbears are sneaking up on you. That's it. That's honestly about it. They're tall, 7 foot tall. They have good sneaking skill. They have good stealth skill. That's sort of about it. They just don't have a lot of backstory built into them. So if we're going to make them more than just fur orc, we really are going to need to reimagine them, because not only are they not that exciting by themselves, there's a load of humanoids that we could choose instead. And those go from like weird Skeksis birdmen to extra-dimensional predators to seal women. So they got the good ambush, gimmick going for them. That's about it. That would indicate certain things about their tactics and their preferences for combat, but there's not a whole lot going on for them. I mean, yeah, there's just not. So we're really going to have to reimagine Bugbears. We're really going to have to rethink them. So let's do that. Bugbears. Before I do any kind of reimagining, I like to go back to pop culture and mythology, especially the pop culture mythology that has informed the creature. Bugbears are interesting because their name is an old English term just for anything that is a supernatural creature. It's the same root word for boogeyman, it's the same root word for bogey. Something that is scary, something that comes to scare you. Now, the bugbears that we have owe a lot less to mythology and folklore than they do to 2 things: pop culture and a cultural imagination. Now, when we're talking about raiding monsters and ambush monsters and things like that, we've got loads of pop cultural precedent for them. We've got Tusken Raiders first and foremost. We've got, any kind of sort of raiding monster, the Trollocs from the Wheel of Time, all those sort of things. Any low-level, easily dispatchable creatures that like to steal and raid and jump you are great pop cultural examples. Now, please hear me out on this, but there's one other thing that we want to talk about, which is the dramatic role played by indigenous peoples in the popular Western imagination. I'm talking about the dramatic roles, not the historical realities. How these things exist how these people exist in our imagination. And they are always as outside forces who threaten stability and civilization. Progress and culture are their enemies. Now that's not true. It's racist to think that. I don't think that. But I think that we would be not doing our jobs if we pretended that we do not have this body of fiction that can inform us. Think about, raids by Native Americans or raids by Indigenous Australians or raids by Maori people, and how they inform our notions of what a last stand or an ambush at dawn or anything like that looks like. So immediately we've got one rethink as tribal raiders, and maybe they're protecting their own land, maybe they're resisting imperialism, maybe they're just a bunch of bastards. Make them Tusken Raiders if you like. They're hitting lonely outposts. Make them moss troopers from Scottish history. But I think that the ambush and the chaotic evil alignment suggests something a little bit more. They've got good stealth skills. They've got ties perhaps to Fey worlds with their name. Bugbear. It means something that scares you. So imagine shadowy, pallid, twisting creatures coming up from wells, sneaking up out of caves, slowly opening the window to climb into your room. Imagine the feel of them as their claws woke you gently. My friend said that she's a midnight professional, shall we say. And she told me that she saw something like that on the roof of this inn just the other day. Something that, did you hear that? I heard something. No, you go upstairs. So, there's another use for bugbears. Making them specifically a sneaky, creepy, horrible creature that is going to never play fair, is going to stick to the darkness and is going to drag you out of your bed and maybe drag you back to its lair for something much, much worse. Either imagine them as goblins given the dark elf treatment of going down into the darkness and being changed, perhaps cursed by monsters, perhaps having drank some horrible natural shadow goddess blood, something like that, something that has changed them and made them into a sadistic, creeping race of cowardly, murderous sneaks. I reckon you get a fair bit of use out of that, actually. That sounds good to me. Alright, so how are we using them? Bugbears are raiders. The mechanics make it so they have nothing else to threaten their party with aside from the big old ambush. So you might find them as irregulars or special service forces in the service of whatever Dark Lord is attacking your campaign world. They might just be another race of people who like to raid rather than farm or hunt. They might just be a weird passing through band who are causing problems for your local community today. Or perhaps they actually do have a territory that they have long protected and is now in danger of imperialist expansion into their territory. So a party that intrudes, that has an adventure that intrudes onto Bugbear territory, might find themselves in a horrible parody of the Battle of Endor with all the little Ewoks and that, which I had some experience with. They are mean and they are brutal and they are hungry. They are not sadistic in the way that, say, a chain devil or something is. Hurting people is not their main goal. It's a bit of fun they might do. You might get dragged away to be tortured by the cubs and by the female bugbears or the non-combative bugbears if you want to be less sort of essentialist about it. But they're more likely to eat you alive than they are to torture you to death. They just want food. They're just a good knockdown, drag out fight. They don't really have a lot of racial goals, a lot of long-term racial goals in the way that, say, the Mind Flayers who want to knock out the sun do, or the Dark Elves who want to reconquer the world do. Maybe you got them whipped up by a warlord, or maybe a shaman or weird priest is telling them to do something. You could meet them in some sort of weird bugbear crusade if you really, really wanted. If you remake them as creepy shadow people, give them... I would give them some kind of god thing to worship. It would be a good way of introducing a big bad, actually. You have to travel back to... You fight them, you get rid of them, you realise that they're laid nearby, there's maybe a lot more, so you follow them back, and there you find out that it was a shadow dragon giving orders all the time, or a shadow giant, or something like that. Night hag, maybe, even if you... And in time, you learn that secondary boss is working for the big bad of the campaign, a Death Titan or an Atropul or something like that, something that would be connected to that creepy, sneaking murderousness. In combat, lots of ambushes. Ambush, ambush, ambush. Have them taunt characters to try and lure them out of defensible positions. Sneak up on them. Only have 2 or 3 attack, so your players are going like, oh, this seems pretty easy, and then bang, 5 more hit from the rear. That is what you were doing. You're always looking for ways to get that stealth attack. You're always looking for ways to get that ambush off, because you've got the Alpha Strike, and that is all you've got. Role-playing? They are alpha dickheads. They are schoolyard bullies. They are, in your face. Role-playing like that as well, like... Obviously, you want to get a lot of growling, grunting, that shit going on. Just really show your teeth, grunt, be aggressive. And if you're using them as creepy, shadowy fae folk, serpentine movements, hissing, perhaps even their mouths are freshly sewed up when they go on raid so that they can't speak at all, and make them, rather than a aggressive hostile race, make them icy and cold and distant, and they are creepy psychos who want to hurt you. That got a bit weird, didn't it? Also, the dog's trying to get into this room now, so creepy. Alright, so how are players going to encounter bugbears directly in your campaign? How are they going to know about them, and what are some good ideas for adventures that they can deal with? First of all, I kinda won't really tell very much about normal bugbears. They don't really have a spellcasting tradition. Maybe if you're using a freaky, dark, shadowy bugbear variant, you might know a little bit about the spells that they have, or the forces that shape them. Although I would tend to give that to religion, because that sort of stuff is sort of the gods took them, the dark, chthonic gods of the under-earth. Nature lore, that'll always tell you about, races and people like that, so you should definitely include some information. Any kind of good outdoorsy, rangery, wilderness-based character should probably know something about them. Druids. Again, history, well, if you decide to use them as a race, a faction or something like that, you probably will be able to say, look, no, actually the bugbears have been causing problems here for a long, long time. I'm not sure what they are, but I know that there's always issues with them, and there has been since 2006. So, And let's all end it. Let's bring it on home with some adventure ideas. Firstly, raiders, they come over the border. You might be tipped off to them because you notice them sneaking their way through a wheat field or hanging around in a forest like a perv on a schoolyard. Pretty standard, just a good, solid combat encounter to let you know that they're there. Maybe that will lead on to something. You are sent to negotiate with the bugbears. Perhaps there is a bigger threat that even the humanoids of the area will have to deal with. Dark elves, maybe, or troglodytes coming out, or ogres, or a dragon, or whatever. But the Bugbears, they won't respond to logic and they won't respond to reason, just strength and aggression. 3. Your party pinches a sacred relic from the Bugbears, and now you are being chased through dangerous territory. I'm seeing a rocky desert. I'm seeing a kind of Nevada, New Mexico. Give it a Cowboys and Indian feel. Give it the sensation that you have transgressed in their land. This is their territory, and they know it better. So you're in trouble. Number 4. The dark star has risen. The call has gone out to all those with the heart to understand. The dark culling has come. It's a siege scenario. You're in a small town or a large village or something along those lines, a city or even an army camp, and the Bugbears are coming. They will need to kidnap people, they need to steal them, and they need to kill everybody that they can. So it's a siege situation. The twist is no one's doing normal siege stuff. They can climb over the walls, they can come out of wells, they can jump down at you. Really get that, you ever see Dog Soldiers? That's an interesting example of this sort of adventure where you are either trapped or you need to defend a territory, and it's against things that can sneak in, against things that you can't keep out with just brute force and barring a door and throwing oil down on them. You have to be smart about it because it's going to get creepy, and sooner or later you need to engineer some... You have to come in here alone. Sort of, yeah, good stuff. And the last one, the 5th adventure, is... Alright, so that adventure went pretty well. You got rid of the Bugbears, but they did get some kidnapping victims. So you have to go and follow them down to the Bugbear lair, which is creepy. You know, their weird totems are there. Their horrific demigods are there. You know, they might be throwing people into a pit that a purple worm comes. They might be swapping them to mind flayers for magic. They might be, you know, throwing them into weird pools to sacrifice them to black puddings or green slimes or acid monsters like that. Just a horrible, horrible death. Or perhaps even they're offering them directly as a sacrifice to the mistress. So there you go. There's Bugbears. Great low-level bad guy. Play up the ambush. Really do think about some tactics. Make some terrain that will fit ambushing tactics. You can really get some mileage out of them, but you need to rethink them. You need to make them raiders. You need to make them bandits. You need to make them perhaps justified. Perhaps they are an indigenous people fighting back, or perhaps they're just a race of creepy mutants who live beneath the earth who really like to eat people. Either way, keep them in mind. More exciting than an orc, more exciting than a regular goblin. Do the liking, do the sharing, do the subscribing, all that YouTube stuff. You know how to go. I'm Reed. This is Crowland Publishing. Thanks very much.